Last year, for the last homeless count, there were 1,200 unhoused people who said they suffered from severe mental illness. How do you force people off the street into treatment if they don't want it? People have to go through a lot of trauma to get to the point where hospitals or the system kicks in.
When we first started reporting on homelessness about 9 months ago, we knew that one of the main questions we were going to have to answer is, why has there been such an increase in the number of mentally ill people on the streets? It's one of the number one questions we got from people. It's so visible, it's so obvious that there's something wrong with our mental health care system that's letting people live often unable to take care of themselves on the streets in Long Beach. The next story we're publishing attempts to answer that question.
Looking out on the street, we've all encountered people who appear to be mentally ill and are homeless. And I think a lot of people in Long Beach really want to know what they can do to help. But there's always this lingering question about why isn't anything being done, or who is helping, or who is supposed to be helping these people? And so that's the question that I tried to tackle. And I think that's the tough part, is when people aren't willing to go. And because of their mental illness, not because they don't want help or they don't need it, but because they have an illness that prevents them from seeking that help. And so I delved into the question to the very complex topic of mental health conservatorships. The way that conservatorships work is based on a 1967 law. It's old. There have been many attempts to change it, and they failed partly because of the way that mental health care was organized before 1967, which was frightening. The state had a lot of psychiatric hospitals that have been the subject of movies and horror shows for good reason. People were locked away indefinitely, experimented on. It was tragic. And so trying to untangle this story took about 4 months. It was one of the most difficult stories I can say I've ever worked on, because tracking down one answer to a question led to about 10 more. And this was all driven really by a woman named Danielle Curtis. And so that's kind of the opening question of the story, is why was it so difficult for this woman to get help for her son who clearly needed it? This was a young man who had been 5150'd, which is a short-term involuntary hold, over 20 times. He had been jailed, hospitalized. He had had instances of violence. He'd had instances of being robbed, beaten on the streets, had some pretty scary medical issues on the streets, and this woman wanted to help her son. And this woman was actually able to get her son into a mental health conservatorship, and it took an extraordinary effort on her part. It's really eye-popping what this woman had to go through. Bottom line, though, is that we need more beds. We need more services. We need more places to put people. We need more accessible tools for people, mothers, family, people who want to participate and want to, even members of the public who want to do something. We need more avenues, more ways into the system. Right now, it's really a closed door. So we do have a number of other projects in the works. We have much more to come on this project. In the next few months, we'll be publishing stories looking at the foster care system, as well as a story looking at the impact of homelessness on our libraries, which is a big issue. So stay tuned.